Over the Line Sports and its staff wishes to extend condolences to the family of Philip Hughes, with our thoughts also extended to support Sean Abbott. Hughes was Australian Test cap 408 and still holds the record for being the youngest batsman to score hundreds in both innings of a Test match. He managed that feat against South Africa in 2009 against arguably the greatest bowling attack in world cricket. Hughes, by all accounts, was a gentleman both on and off the field. He would have been 26 on Sunday. Hello and welcome to the football podcast here at overthelinesports.com.au. Today I'm joined by a fellow contributor, Blaze Ross. Blaze, you're up on the Gold Coast today. Can you tell us more about what you're doing up there?
Hey mate, I'm back this weekend. I'm actually in the Gold Coast for the AFL draft. You can hear a bit of traffic in the background. I'm actually sitting in Seven's Paradise, where Schoolies is currently going on.
And we'll have plenty of AFL draft coverage here on the website, so make sure to stick around and log on to www.overthelinesports.com.au. Of course, we've got football to talk about. Plenty of action going on in Europe with the Champions League, both on Wednesday and Thursday morning our time, of course. Just going through some of the results. CSKA Moscow and Roma had a 1-1 draw. Athletic and Shakhtar, Athletic won 1-0. Man City beat Bayern Munich, of course, thanks to that Sergio Aguero performance 3-2. Chelsea dispatched Roberto Di Matteo's Schalke 5-0. Porto won 3-0 over Bate Borisov. Sporting Lisbon beat Maribor 3-1. Paris Saint-Germain defeated Ajax 3-1. And Barcelona defeated Apoel Nicosia by 4-0. That was on Wednesday morning our time. Zenit St. Petersburg beat Benfica by 1-0, as did Monaco over Bayer Leverkusen. Arsenal defeated Dortmund 2-0, as did Juventus against Malmo. One of the bigger results was Ludogorets gaining a point from Liverpool 2-2. Anderlecht beating Galatasaray 2-0. Real Madrid beating Basel by 1-0, and Atletico Madrid dispatching Olympiacos 4-0. Quite a few stories coming out of this week's Champions League match day. We'll start with Man City beating Bayern Munich. Of course, you have to really heap the praise on Sergio Aguero, Blaze.
Yeah, well, being a Man City fan, I went absolutely nuts. To think that we were down 2-1 to the best team in the world, like provided they had 10 men, to be down 2-1 to probably the best team in the world currently, 5 minutes to go, and then come back to win 3-2, that was absolutely brilliant. And the hat-trick hero, Sergio Aguero, you can't fault him. I honestly rate him up there in the top 5 players in the world. I think he's personally underrated, and I know a lot of people have actually laughed at me when I've said that, when they're like, oh, underrated, what do you mean? Sergio Aguero is rated. However, when it comes to Ronaldo and Messi, just no one apparently comes near close to them. But with his record, I just think he's unstoppable on his day.
Yeah, another excellent performance, and he's probably the best out-and-out striker in the world right now. Of course, guys like Ronaldo and Messi play a little bit wider, but up top, spearheading that Manchester City attack and doing it with quite a lot of style. You really like to sort of perform like that every week in the league to sort of gain ground on front-running Chelsea, who of course had that magnificent performance against Schalke yesterday morning. You spoke about, of course, Messi and Ronaldo. Messi broke the record again for most Champions League goals ever. He took over from Raul, and it just joins a long list of records held by Lionel Messi.
Yeah, he's a terrific player. Whether he be injured or not throughout seasons, he will always still be known as potentially one of the best players to ever play the game. It's actually really great to be able to witness the experience and what this guy has to offer. For example, I'm just looking at a few stats here. Usually he gets compared to Ronaldo, and I'm probably going to compare him to Ronaldo just in this instance. Not to mention the fact, all of his honours, he's just absolutely gotten everything there is to offer. And it's just absolutely brilliant. I can't fault him, just like his really close friend Sergio Aguero. So yeah, I think he's a great player, and he deserves all of his achievements.
Yeah, just looking at some of Messi's records now, of course, he's the La Liga top scorer with 253. Of course, Champions League top scorer now. Most goals in a season. He's got the most Ballon d'Ors with 4. The most European Cup top scorer awards with 4. That's with Gerd Muller as well. Most La Liga hat-tricks in a season. Most goals in a calendar year. 91 goals in 365 days. He's Barcelona's top goal scorer of all time. Most consecutive La Liga matches scored in with 21. That's an unbelievable achievement. Most goals in a La Liga season with 50. Most goals in a Club World Cup. He's joined by Danielson with 4. And most goals in a single European Cup game, that was 5, and he joins Luis Adriano. He also has most goals in El Clasico. Blaze, you have to say, we've never seen anyone like Messi before.
No, we definitely have not, and especially it's really great to be able to watch it in our generation, and it's great to be able to have two great players like Ronaldo and Messi in the same generation that we're just watching beautiful football. To basically wrap it all up, like in our generation, these two players are the top notch, and Messi I would probably rate just that little bit better. I don't like comparing them in that way, but just everything he's done, his achievements have just been through the roof. His team play, his physicality, his physicality is a little bit down. Skill and technique. He's great at free kicks, penalties. It's just I could name them all day long, and there was always going to be something where you just say Messi's great at that. He's a great player, and I'm privileged to be able to see him.
Quite right. You can't fault anything that Messi does. He never puts a foot wrong. Ronaldo probably edges him sort of physically and in the air, but overall, it's pretty tough to compare the two. Both exceptional players, and stats-wise, you have to say Messi is marginally ahead. Just going back to that CSKA Moscow Roma result, as well as the City Bayern result, that really puts that group in a very precarious position, Blaze.
Yeah, well, definitely. This group was always known as the group of death. Like when you get Bayern Munich and Man City and Roma, and even Moscow, that's an absolute great club right there. And all of them, even though Bayern is now top of the table, no matter that, doesn't matter with that loss, with 12 points, so they can't get total. But with Roma and City and Moscow, they're all on 5 points. So it does really come down to the last day in 2 weeks' time, where City travel to Rome and Moscow travel to Munich. Now, in saying that, I have somewhat of a feeling, I know it would not be great for the game. I have somewhat of a controversial opinion that who would you rather be in the knockout stages? Would you rather see Moscow make the knockout stages, or would you rather see City make the knockout stages if you were an opposing team? Now, I'd probably prefer to say Moscow, simply because they're not to the same quality that City can produce on their given day. So if Munich were to say lose to Moscow, Moscow goes through straight away. It doesn't matter what happens. Because unless Roma wins, that's right. So basically, I really have a feeling that Munich might take this and let Moscow win, simply for the fact that erases City out of the question for the future knockout stages.
Yeah, we don't want to sort of speculate any form of collusion. If anyone knows the story of the 1982 World Cup with some blatant collusion, they'll know how bad it looks on just about everyone. It's going to be a tight affair. I mean, not many people would have expected City to win that game against Bayern Munich. Of course, Munich went down to 10 men. Just opens up the rest of that group for everyone. City were pretty much dead and gone had they not got a result there. So, again, everything happening in that group. It's probably the most keenly fought group. We'll go to this week's domestic scene, and we'll go to the Premier League, of course. There's a couple of games that are quite tricky for some of the stronger teams. As Sunderland play Chelsea. Of course, if anyone really remembers last season correctly, they'll know that Chelsea actually dropped all 3 points to Sunderland late last year. Start with the first game of the round. West Brom taking on Arsenal. The Hawthorns at 11:45pm Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. What do you make of that game, given that Arsenal lost to United last week?
I definitely have to say that I was definitely wrong about last week. We did kind of just go over and briefly discuss that United didn't have really much of a chance for their injuries, but did they prove us wrong? They came out and they beat Arsenal, who are in form, 2-1 at the Emirates, and that was an absolute brilliant display for what they have. So I'm actually, their recent performance against Dortmund in the Champions League, where they actually came out and beats us 2-0. I think they're going to grow confidence from that, and also we're going to have a fight back from last weekend's match. So being at the Hawthorns, West Brom aren't exactly doing too well this season. Sanchez is gone back onto the scoring sheet against Dortmund. So I actually really think that Arsenal will push through here pretty comfortably. Then again, I did say that last week.
Yeah, we've got to probably eat our words a little bit last week, Blaze, after saying that about United with having 10 players out, not giving them much chance of even nicking any form of result. So yeah, we could probably put our hands up and take the blame for that one. Just looking at some of the other games, of course, there's 2 Monday games due to involvement in Europe. Southampton take on Man City and Tottenham play Everton. We'll look at those in a second. The late night Saturday and they're actually early Sunday morning games. Liverpool plays Stoke City. Stoke are a bit of a bogey team for Liverpool. Burnley Aston Villa at 2 o'clock. It's not exactly a game to write home about, but still a pretty important one, possibly with relegation situations going on down there in the bottom half of the table. Could be a pretty interesting result looking back once we get to the end of the season. Man United take on Hull. Of course, Hull led at half-time against Tottenham last week, only to fall 2-1. Again, we'll look at Chelsea versus Sunderland. QPR take on Leicester City. Again, another clash with relegation dogfight sort of in the midst early in the season. Swansea take on Crystal Palace. Palace, of course, played excellently last week. And West Ham take on Newcastle. Let's have a look at Chelsea-Sunderland. Of course, we did mention, Blaze, Chelsea dropped all 3 points to Sunderland late last year. Could you see something like that happening again?
Well, you'd have to really go on Chelsea here. Even though Sunderland did defeat them last season, you really have to go with the undefeated Chelsea. Chelsea really are an absolute brilliant side this season. They haven't lost at one game, and people are comparing them to the Arsenal side that went undefeated about 11 years ago now. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this Chelsea side come out, even though they're a title rival for my personal team. I really can't see past Chelsea. However, Sunderland obviously did beat them last season, and they were the first team to beat Chelsea at Stamford Bridge under Jose Mourinho. So this will be a pretty interesting game. However, I don't think Sunderland have the fight in them as they did at the end of last season when they were obviously trying to push out of that relegation zone. We all know at the end of the season when the lower teams are trying to get out of the relegation zone and try and fight for their safety, that they push on and they fight even harder than they have been all season. So yeah, I still have to go with Chelsea. Sunderland just don't have the fight in them they did have last season.
Yeah, an amazing turnaround of events for Sunderland last year at the end of the season. Really rallied, and a lot of people thought they were dead and buried, and they came through in the clutch. City, easily front runners at the moment. Can't see them being too challenged for the league by anyone apart from City. And to be honest, they're the real deal. I said it at the start of the season, if City weren't going to win the league, it was going to be Chelsea. Chelsea so far have done just about everything and more than I probably expected from them. To be honest, someone like Diego Costa is overperformed past my expectations of where I thought he would be this season. Of course, he's always under that sort of fitness cloud, but he's such an excellent player. Stacked in midfield. You've got depth for days in midfield for them. They're just going to continue to put teams to the sword. A lot of people asking, can they go the whole season unbeaten? Way too early to call again, but I'll tell you what, it's definitely possible for a side like that. They're just so strong in just about every position.
It definitely is. Just to stop you for a second there, it definitely is, and especially under Jose Mourinho. Over recent seasons, they've been chopping and changing their manager, and they've been absolutely ripped because of it, and they have suffered definitely because of it. They haven't won in quite a few years now. So the stability that Mourinho brings to the Chelsea squad is great for the side, and that's why they're doing this. I don't personally believe that they'll go through the season undefeated. I actually feel that during the end of the season, when they think they've got game one in the bag, they'll sit back a bit and they'll be complacent, and then they'll probably lose, and that's just because of that. Exactly what happened with the Sunderland game last season. So yeah, I'd still have to go with Chelsea this early in the season.
On the balance of probabilities, there's no way Chelsea can go unbeaten. I mean, the parity of the Premier League is such that anyone could, on their day, be good enough to beat Chelsea. Completely right about Mourinho, Blaze. Absolute revelation again to have him back. And pretty much picking up where he left off. It's funny. It's a funny statistic back in, I think it was 2011 or 12, after they sacked, I think it was Ancelotti, oh, it might have been someone before that, I can't remember. They actually paid more in managers' compensation than Everton spent in the transfer window in the Premier League. In the history of the Premier League, Everton had only spent something like £84 million. And that was actually less than how much Roman Abramovich paid out in compensation to those that he cut ties with. That's a ridiculous stat. Let's look at the Monday games. Southampton, Man City. We didn't think at the start of the season this fixture would be as important as it is. Unbelievable start for Southampton. City always in the hunt. And we've got Tottenham, Everton too, in another pretty tough game. Both teams coming off victories. What do you make of those two matchups this weekend?
To jump straight to the Southampton City game, that's a really tough one to call. I'm actually leaning somewhat towards the draw, and the draw is paying at $3.30 to 1 on sportsbet.com.au. However, with the Southampton game, they're coming off somewhat of a lull period. They've just drawn to Aston Villa away 1-1. So I'm starting to sort of lead towards a victory for City because I reckon they're coming into form and Aguero's pumping. Southampton might seem to find a little falter in their season right now because they've started off so absolutely brilliantly. So it really will be an interesting fixture, especially being at St Mary's. So I will. I can't pick it. It's going to be. I'd probably go with City or draw for that one, simply because I just find Aguero's on form and I can't falter them. Now to move on to the Tottenham Everton game. I'm going to have to go with Everton, maybe just. Everton have been really under par so far this season, and they really will be looking forward to getting back onto the higher place of the table, challenging the Champions League places like they usually do. They haven't really started off that well, and coming up with victory, I reckon they're coming in form. I reckon this is their part of the season just before Christmas where they'll come in form and they'll put a few wins behind their club and then get right back up there.
Yeah, agreed. Everton notoriously slow starters in the Premier League, and they get to October and November, particularly actually more into December, and they put a string of very good performances together, and they give their European aspirations a real boost. To think too that at the moment, fourth place in the Premier League is a very open race. Both these sides are not out of it by any stretch of the imagination. As an Everton fan, it's hard for me to be unbiased in this situation. I do like Everton. Tottenham are a little bit shaky against Hull. They did bank on the excellent form of Harry Kane and Christian Eriksen, two fantastic players, particularly Eriksen, who's been a fantastic signing for that club. Just going back to my prediction with Southampton Man City, Southampton did show a little bit of defensive frailty given that they conceded a goal from Aston Villa, which was Aston Villa's first goal in a long time. City, of course, with the attacking capability that by far supersedes Aston Villa. So I see goals in that game, and to be honest, I would not be surprised if City won that game. Southampton coming into a few really tough matches coming up, and we'll see if they're the real deal after the next 8 weeks or so.
Exactly. Just on that, with their coming up games is absolutely crucial for their season. Like they've got City, they've got United twice, they've got Arsenal, they've got Chelsea, they've got all the top teams. I think they've even got Everton at some stage too. So they've all got all the top teams in the next coming 10 weeks. All those teams in the next 10 weeks is unbelievable. So, like you said, it really does come down to what their ambitions are for this season, because this is really going to be the telling point in whether they can match it with the big dogs or fall under the pressure. But just going back to what you were saying with you reckon there's going to be some goals in this match. It's actually a really tight match on the sportsbet.com.au for what the favouring is for the under or over of the 2.5 goals. But over is just edging it by 3 cents at the moment. So $1.85 to 1 for over 2.5 goals. So if you'd like to go for that one, jump on that one, jump on sportsbet.com.au, and you can have a go at $1.85 to 1.
Yeah, remember that sportsbet.com.au are our affiliates here at Over the Line Sports. So yeah, remember to sign up with them through our website and always gamble responsibly. Finally, we can look at the A-League fixtures for this weekend. Plenty of games to cover, plenty of games that could go either way. There's a few derbies here as well. particularly the Sydney Derby and the F3/M1 Derby, whatever you want to call it now, based on the alphanumeric change to the motorway between Newcastle and Sydney. First, the Friday game, Melbourne victory, Adelaide United. They're rivals in themselves, of course. The introduction of the second Melbourne team into the league has probably changed a little bit, but I know both of these sides would want the wood on the other in this game.
But I have to go with victory here. The victory versus Adelaide game was an absolute blinder the last one a bit earlier this season. And I think it was ended 1-1, and Calfella actually scored the goal for victory to equalise, and I think it was the 89th minute of that game, if I can remember correctly. This game is actually really heated. These two teams do not like each other, and it seems to be that victory fans, or victory in general, aren't really liked by any of the clubs. They've got a lot of rivalries. They've got a rivalry with Sydney. They've got a rivalry with Adelaide. They've got a rivalry with Sydney FC. Something is kind of brewing between them and West Sydney Wanderers. So I think it does come from the fact that they are obviously one of the most successful teams in the competition. So I actually really like this game. I think there's going to be plenty of goals in it, and it's in Melbourne. So I really fancy having a watch of this game, and I'm going to have to go with $2.15 to 1 at the Melbourne victory to win in front of their home crowd, which is looking to be a sellout.
Look, at the start of the year again, I said victory were probably the side to beat. They've proved me right. They've got an absolutely brilliant playing squad, though Adelaide United undergone bout have been fantastic as well. Very good in normal play. Offset pieces too. They're starting to find their feet. Again, a tough result. Melbourne at home probably edge favourites. I wouldn't mind backing a draw here in that one. Second game is 5 p.m. on Saturday night between Brisbane Roar and Perth Glory. Of course, it's Brisbane Roar's first game with Franz Tyson at the helm. Obviously, that whole situation with Mike Mulvey has gone down, and to be honest, that's a real an interesting revelation coming out of Brisbane. Mike Mulvey now without a job 6 months after winning a double for the Brisbane Roar. They take on the Perth Glory, notable overperformers so far in the league. Another tie one, I think, here with Brisbane at home under a new manager.
Yeah, definitely. This game is going to be quite tight. The last game was pretty out there and had quite a few goals in it, with Brisbane leading 2-1, I think with 10 minutes to go, and Perth Glory actually coming back to win 3-2. A bit of a shambles at the moment in Brisbane. They've changed the manager, and no one really knows what's happening at the moment. They've just obviously come off winning both of what they can possibly win, the Premiership and title. So it's really going to be a close game. However, besides the 1-0 loss to the victory in Melbourne, which was always going to be a tight affair, I actually took a draw for that one, but the Melbourne victory came through 1-0 in the 78th minute, I think it was. So before that, they beat, I think it was Newcastle Jets 4-0. So I'm really thinking that the Brisbane Roar are going to come back and take a bit of form here. They're going to, when a new manager comes, usually teams overperform. They do a bit better for the first stages. Not exactly sure why, but actually it's something that happens in football and in a lot of codes, to be honest. So I have to take the Brisbane Roar here at $2.15, and I do think there is going to be plenty of goals in this match. I definitely would have to say over 2.5, but I think we're going to have a bit of a under at over 3.5. So yeah, I'd have a look at those ones. So how do you feel about that one, Bez?
You make a very good point about the new manager's first game always seeming to end up in a victory. My theory is the players are always eager to outperform their opposition and to sort of gain a leg up in the starting 11, and I think it just gives them a bit more added incentive. On the flip side of that, you can look at the Mariners right now and you can see a very, very poor morale under Phil Moss. We'll discuss that a little bit later in the Mariners preview with Newcastle. But again, I think under Franz Tyson, it might be an interesting game. I think Brisbane might edge this one, actually, despite the strength of Perth Glory this season. The other game on Saturday is the Wanderers versus Sydney at Pertex Stadium, 7:30 p.m. Massive derby for both clubs. Plenty of motivation there, obviously being a derby, but also, too, the Wanderers still winless in the A-League, Blaze. We did predict them to finally get off the mark, and they did lead, only for an equaliser from Newcastle, spoiling the party in Parramatta.
Yeah, this is going to be a great game. I think I've said that quite a few times now. A lot of great games this weekend coming up. But yeah, Western Sydney Wanderers, they led against Newcastle Jets in a game they really should have been winning, which they were winning, and then they got equalised against. So they actually went up really early there, 1-0 in the first half, and then they fell apart. So they're actually kind of lucky to get the draw there, actually. But you keep thinking they're going to do it this week, or they're going to do it this week, or they're going to do it this week. But when do you just give up? When do you just give up betting on them? You can't keep wasting your money on a team that just isn't performing. So when they're versus Sydney FC, last game was an absolute ripper. Western Sydney Wanderers went up 2-0 in, was it ANZ Stadium? I think it was that. And they actually lost that game 3-2. Sydney came back in the second half, being down 2-0 at half time, and they won that game. So I'm still probably going to go with Wanderers. However, I don't know if I'd be able to suggest betting on it because it is really up in the air, this match. If I was to bet, I would probably go Wanderers or draw. But yeah, this is going to be a really tight match, and Sydney FC have been playing really well this season, so it's going to be a brilliant match at Pertex Stadium.
Yeah, I'm going to go against you here. I'm going to go Sydney FC. As much as I hate saying it, they've been excellent. They're in fourth at the moment, of course, level with Victory on points. Of course, Perth and Adelaide are in first and second. Wellington fifth, City in sixth. Sydney FC, Yanko's been an unbelievable signing. And in what was a coup for the club when they did secure his signature, I still don't know how they managed it, to be honest. He's a player who's still relatively in his prime in professional football. And again, they've been fantastic. And it's good to see this derby being probably the most tightly contested, given that the Wanderers, by fanship, are probably the strongest in terms of, fans. Melbourne Victory probably have a case against that as well. You've got to say, fantastic game coming up. One that the whole city will enjoy immensely, and whoever gets the bragging rights in Sydney, you'll hear about it for the next couple of weeks, I think. We'll look at the other two games finally. Wellington Phoenix taking on Melbourne City. Pretty important game given that they're both in relatively similar positions on the table, just 7 games in. Phoenix at home, you have to say, are probably favourites.
Yeah, well, have a look at sportsbet.com.au here. Wellington Phoenix are paying $2.15 a one. The draw is paying $3.50, and Melbourne City are actually paying $3.15. But I would definitely have to lead with the home side here. Just simply because it's in Wellington. Wellington are a really hard team to beat at home. However, away they are absolutely horrible. If you had read my Best Bets article last week, I had described that the Phoenix actually have a really terrible away record, conceding I think it was a minimum of 3 goals usually a game. Obviously last week they only lost 2-1, but being at home, I reckon they'll be too good. City, they had a really good spurt against the Brisbane Roar in their diet period, but yeah, I reckon Phoenix the home side will get this one through.
Again, I'm going to go with you on that one. Not too much to talk about in terms of that game, so we'll end on the last game of the round, which is the F3 derby between Newcastle and the Central Coast Mariners. Both teams really struggling. The Mariners in 7th. They've been underperforming. They all know it. The club's not in a good situation either. As for the Jets, also not in a fantastic situation. Just 3 points from their first 7 games. The Mariners on 5. Can the Mariners get the result away from home? And do you think someone like Marcos Flores, a former Mariners employee, will make a really big mark on this game?
Well, this game is a bit of a... Looking at it, it looks like it's going to be pretty dire, a bit of a low-scoring match. Being a Mariners fan yourself, you could probably say that yourself, seeing it's just these two teams don't seem like there's going to be too many goals scored between them. So I don't know. This game is going to really come down to individual players, and like you said, that's. But yeah, no, I've got to have to go with the under 2.5 goals here. I don't see it being high scoring at all, and I can't really pick a single team to go over the top in this one. So I'm gonna have to go with a draw at 340 to 1. And yeah, I can't pick a single team to take out the victory here. maybe it could be 1-0. It could be that could be it. But I'm going to go with the score draw at 1-1.
Agree with you. It's not going to be an impressive game in terms of attack. Both sides really struggling to score goals. I actually ran into Mitchell Duke here on the Central Coast recently, and he discussed that it has been tough. Of course, we know that things aren't exactly merry on the coast in terms of ownership with Charlesworth really struggling financially, looking for investors for the club. Again, it's not going to be ideal the way the Central Coast Mariners are going on the coast. Something drastic needs to change on the admin side of things as well as on the playing field. So it's a struggle, and of course, being a man who's lived on the coast since he was about 4 or 5 years old, it'll be heartbreaking to see the Mariners fall into a situation that a lot of people are predicting will happen. Of course, any news on that, we will be broadcasting it here on overthelinesports.com.au. Of course, make sure to follow us on Twitter at overthelineaus. Also like our Facebook page and even subscribe to our new YouTube channel. There's a couple of things up there in the moment. This podcast obviously is there, so that's where you'll be viewing it, of course. I'm Dan Beswick, and I've today been joined by Blaze. Thanks a lot, Blaze, and have fun at the AFL draft on the Gold Coast.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a great draft. There's going to be a few great picks and a few great players coming through. So we'll probably discuss this bit, the AFL draft, what happens from tonight next week on the podcast. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it, and I will be. I keep losing my voice. And I'll be putting a few articles on tomorrow for everyone to have a read, and there's a few articles going up tomorrow.
Excellent. So make sure to stay tuned on the website. Once again, see you later and enjoy your sport this week.